I want to thank everyone for being here tonight for our Chaine Du Lac virtual meeting for the annexation. It is 7:22 at 6:03 p.m. for our kickoff here. We're going to talk a little bit tonight about the process, the statutory standards, timelines, all the important questions, the politics, services, fire and police, waste, financial impacts to everyone, some pros and hopefully no cons, but certainly open to any questions, concerns, or anything that anyone may have that are joining us here for the call. Again, like Robert said, we'll record this meeting and make sure it is available. And I know that correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, we do have another meeting already scheduled, right? An additional meeting, or is this our last?
I'll have to check on it, but our intent was to have two resident only, or as much as we can get resident only input from Chaine Du Lac, and then have two public meetings for the general public to have any comments. Then after that, go ahead and have a town council meeting relative to the adoption process, if that's the will of the Chaine Du Lac residents or the majority of those residents.
Exactly. So this is the opportunity again to get any of those questions, answered, any concerns addressed, have a little bit of free flowing conversation if that's what's needed, and then we'll move our way through the process as indicated by participation, input, and general consensus. I'm Jim O'Brien. I'm the mayor of Windermere, and happy to be here, and glad that everyone is here to kind of go through some of these conversations with us together. And with that, I think I'm going to kick it off over to the town manager, Robert Smith, and we'll also be hearing from the town planner tonight and our police chief as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And on the line that we have tonight is going to be Brad Cornelius. He is the contractor planner for the town of Windermere with Wade Trim. We have Tanya Elliott Moore, the public works director for the town of Windermere. I'm not sure if John Fitzgibbon is on or not, but he is one of the civil engineers for the town of Windermere. We also have Chief Dave Ogden on the line. And as you already heard, we have Mayor O'Brien. One thing I wanted to note on this recording, this is a Zoom workshop just for the residents of the Chaine Du Lac region that we're looking to possibly annex into the town of Windermere. Not earlier, probably about an hour ago, we had a tree fall on a power line, so pretty much wiped out power to about 1,000 residents, including some of those that are in Chaine Du Lac. So we understand that they're not going to be able to attend tonight. So what we'll do is try to do a makeup meeting. I know we sent letters out to all the residents that were within Chaine Du Lac, and we might have to go ahead and send those out again to make sure everybody's notified and they're aware of not only this meeting, but the second meeting that's going to be coming up as well. But with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Brad Cornelius. Again, he's the contracted town planner for the town of Windermere, and I apologize, he was going to be here with me tonight in my office, yet he was on 6th Avenue when the tree fell, so we had to turn around, and he's currently sitting in his car and working from the Grove. So Brad, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, and that was the first time in 10 years that I've ever come across 6th Avenue to come to a meeting. I always come down McGuire. I learned my lesson. So as Robert said, I serve as the town planner, and I'll give you a little overview of the annexation process and what would move forward if this does happen. So the town council has voted to move forward with the potential annexation of the Chaine Du Lac area. Just so everybody's aware, the area that's under considered for annexation is just the area within the Chaine Du Lac community specifically. And on the map you see on the slide, it's that area in the yellow area that's adjacent to the town boundary. No of the other areas in that area west of the town is under consideration for annexation. It's only the Chaine Du Lac community that's being considered. Just some simple facts. The area is about 103 acres. There's 74 pieces of property. As of the time we did this analysis, there's 51 single-family homes there. It has a future land use in the county of rural settlement at 1 unit per acre, and has a county zoning of rural country estate cluster. Is how you currently are designated under the county. One thing I will say here is what you are currently designated in the county is very similar to how you would be designated if you were to be annexed here into the town of Windermere. Next, please. So in terms of the process for annexation, there's two ways in Florida that can occur. The first way is a voluntary annexation, and that's when a property owner would approach the town and ask to be annexed into the town limits. That's not what's happening here. And what's happening here is the second way that annexation can occur, and that's what's called involuntary annexation. And that's where the town pursues the annexation. And to do that, what we have to do at the town, and this is what we have been doing, is we have to do a study of the area to show that the area proposed for annexation does meet the statutory requirements for annexation, and that the town's able to provide the appropriate public services to the area similar to as already provided in the town to the residents of the town of Windermere. We also have to coordinate with Orange County. We have to send them a notice and give them an opportunity to give their opinion about the annexation. And then what happens is then the town would hold a public hearing to adopt an ordinance to set a date for a referendum or for a vote on the annexation. And that vote under the statute, it has to be done by the residents or by the registered voters of the people that live within the area proposed for annexation. The town has the option, but not required, to also bring it to a vote to the registered voters in the town. But it does have to be voted on by the registered voters in the Chaine Du Lac area. If that referendum passes, and it's a simple majority of those that vote, then it moves forward to annexation. Then it goes through a whole nother set of public hearings to finalize the annexation and also assign the town land use and zoning to the property, which then would finalize that process. So that's the overview of that process that would move forward. Next, please. Again, as I just said, this is an involuntary annexation. So again, it would be the Chaine Du Lac area registered voters. And again, the town has the option, but it's not required to go to the town residents for a vote. I think at this point, the town council has directed staff to look at this only as a vote of the Chaine Du Lac residents, but that won't be finalized until we move forward with the ordinance for the referendum and how they want to do that at that time. But that is the option of the town council. Next, please. So with the statutory requirements, this is the big part that we have to be sure that we meet. And this is the way the county, could challenge if they would want to, is the Florida statutes provide very specific standards of the areas that local governments can annex. And the couple big ones are that it's contiguous, meaning it's adjacent to the town, which this area is. You're adjacent to the western town limits. Also that it is what's called compact and not sprawling. And again, this is a defined area. It's not like a long serpentine line along a roadway to try to get to somewhere else, which is what other places do. And so it meets all those requirements of the Florida statute in terms of the location. The other part is that we don't create an area that's surrounded by the town and remains unincorporated. So if this does get annexed, this area meets all those criteria under the Florida statutes. Next, please. The other part of what the statutes say is that the areas that are considered for annexation have to be what the statute calls developed for urban purposes. This definition is a statutory state definition, and that's important to remember, because one thing I will say here, it doesn't match what the county calls rural and urban, but that's not what we have to follow. We have to follow the statutory definition. And the statutory definition, I'm not going to go through all these words, but basically what it is that the area is developed, and it's developed in lots that are 5 acres or less in size. And Chaine Du Lac meets that requirement. Your developed area of single family homes, the average lot size is a little bit over an acre. None of the lots in there are over 5 acres. So you clearly meet the definition of urban under the Florida statutes for annexation. So those are the two big areas that we have to analyze related to the character of the area to be annexed, and Chaine Du Lac meets those characteristic requirements. Next, please. So, as I said earlier, what would happen with the annexation is until the annexation is finalized, if it gets approved, both through the vote and both by the town council, your zoning and land use requirements under the county still remain in effect until we go through the process on the town side to then assign the town's land use and zoning to the property. So that would be the process that would happen to then bring you under the regulatory authority of the town. What we've said throughout this process and what the town council has approved us to do with this is that what you would come in under would be under the town, what we would call a planned unit development, a PUD. And you would have a development agreement for the Chaine Du Lac area. And the reason for that is the intent is what we would try to do is not change, standards and requirements that you currently have, whether it's under your approved subdivision plans or other things, that so to not make any significant changes to what you already have approvals and regulatory things to do. And we've done an analysis of that, and there really aren't a lot of changes that will have to occur. There are some, but not anything of great significance. So that will go forward. Also, part of that, and Robert will talk about this, is an annexation agreement. That's basically part of this development agreement, where it does assure and provide for, who's responsible for maintaining the roads and the stormwater and all the different pieces of this. That would be part of that as well. So that would be how that transition would occur. Next, please, Robert. In terms of the timeline, it would be about 30 days to complete the annexation analysis report, and actually you see draft complete. We've already done that. We have a draft of that annexation analysis. It was actually presented to the town council a few council meetings ago. We are in the process of updating it now based on more information and new information that we have. So that part of this process is basically complete. We're just in the process of updating it. Once that's through and we get the okay from the town council to move forward, we'll then have the ordinance drafted to schedule the public hearings. That's about 60 days for that process to occur. And then the public hearing, then the referendum would be scheduled and they would move forward. So that's, we're estimating somewhere around 90 to 120 days. But again, we've already have that first 30 days pretty well done. So the next moves forward with that. And then after that, then we go through the land use zoning change, and that's another 60 to 90 days estimating. And so that's the general idea of a timeline of the process. Next, please. And that's the end of my part, and I'll turn it over to Robert to go into more specifics on the service issues.
Thanks, Brad. One thing I did want to clarify, involuntary is a very scary word. It may seem like we're just dragging people in that haven't expressed an interest in actually coming into the town of Windermere. This is not the case here. We've had several meetings with members that live within Chaine Du Lac. We've also had a meeting with the HOA board of Chaine Du Lac, and we understand that there are people that are in the HOA board or in the HOA, and some people are not in the HOA. But we would not have explored this unless we were contacted by the residents, and we saw enough interest in this to proceed with an involuntary annexation. And involuntarily bringing somebody in would mean, out of all those parcels, let's say one person didn't want to come into the town of Windermere, the majority of the people within that certain area is what it would take to bring them in. And hopefully we can go through some of the pros and demonstrate why it would be beneficial for the residents of Chaine Du Lac to come into the town of Windermere. So I'm going to go through several steps. And again, it's great you're raising your hand. Just please hold those questions until we get to the very end. Or if you're not really great at public speaking or just afraid of actually speaking on a Zoom call, please feel free to go ahead and type a question out in the chat box, and we'll make sure that we address your questions. So the things I'm going to go over is going to be what the town of Windermere responsibilities are going to be. The changes in solid waste and recycling, fire protection, EMS services, the politics of an annexation, some additional benefits that Chaine Du Lac residents would be privy to, and also the financial impacts when it comes to your property if annexed into the town of Windermere. So the responsibilities between the HOA and the town is going to be the same responsibilities that you currently have with Orange County and the HOA. So we would agree to that current agreement that you currently have whenever the plat was approved for Chaine Du Lac. So you'd continue to be responsible for the roads, the common areas, stormwater, and lighting. There's things that we can possibly do to assist with payment of those. Let's say that your stormwater system is failing, you just don't have the money in your HOA to go ahead and fix those. We can create what's called a municipal service benefit unit. And the town would front that money, and then over a 10-year period of time, you would pay the town back to make sure that your stormwater is working. Same thing when it comes to roads, lighting, any other improvements that you're looking at within the development. And anything that we agree to, we would memorialize in an annexation agreement, which Brad actually referenced. What that does is it lays out in a contract form what the town is agreeing to, what the residents of Chaine Du Lac are agreeing to, and we can incorporate, again, who's responsible for what, any promises that were made prior to the referendum going out, meaning that we would tailor a land use that would fit the current land use of Chaine Du Lac. Now, there are differences between, what's allowed in Orange County, what's not allowed in the town of Windermere, having chickens in your backyard, stuff like that. But these are things that we can negotiate prior to the annexation moving forward. So everybody's comfortable with the fact that, if I'm agreeing to annexation, this is what I'm agreeing to. So nobody can go ahead and change anything prior to that referendum going out, or at least in conceptual of that. So solid waste and recycling services, I know this has been an issue with some of the Chaine Du Lac residents. The number one thing is that you currently have once a week pickup for, I think, solid waste recycling and yard debris. With the town of Windermere, we have twice a week. We have Tuesdays and Thursdays, or Tuesdays and Fridays, I'm sorry. Tuesdays is solid waste and recycling. Wednesdays is yard debris, and Friday is solid waste pickup. And a good thing about, the relationship we have with Waste Pro, we were the first contract, I think, in Central Florida area. So we've been with them for quite some time. In addition to that, we get notified individually, myself and finance, whenever there is a request for an additional service, whether you have a fridge, you have somebody's moving out, and there's a large amount of debris that's going to be placed on the curbside, we can work with Waste Pro to make sure that's cleaned up as fast as possible. And again, that's the kind of service you would get from a smaller community as opposed to something that's countywide. For a yard waste pickup, and again, we'll get into this when it comes to emergency services, because of the contracts that we have and the relationships that we have, if there is a storm or something like that, we can make sure that that service is going to be out there as quickly as possible. And the rates that we currently have, again, it's twice a week, so it's a little bit more, but it's not that much of a delta between what you're paying now and what you would get for a twice a week service. Fire services, this is something that's always been a point of contention when it comes to the town looking at the possibility of annexing in. It was a point of contention when the town was looking at the possibility of annexing Isleworth. Isleworth is a large community, a large tax base. And if annexed in, I know that the county would take a hit when it comes to the fire and the police MSTs that they currently assess. But again, this is a very compact, very selective annexation, so the impacts are going to be greatly less than if the town was going to look at something like that. And those conversations have not really occurred with anybody else except Chaine Du Lac, because the residents have come to the town of Windermere and asked for that consideration. So the agreement that is currently in place with the town of Windermere is that we have a contract with the COE. So COE provides fire and EMS services for the town of Windermere. COE and Orange County, they have there's two agreements that they currently have. It's called a mutual aid and an automatic aid. A mutual aid is if all heck breaks loose, then all the closest responding units can go to that area. If you have a huge fire that's going on, you know, like a brush fire or just, you know, something that's larger than what any other service can take care of, then that mutual aid would go ahead and come into place. An automatic aid agreement is more of I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine kind of deal. For a COE, they have a lot more fire stations in the northern part of a COE where Orange County doesn't have that many fire stations. So COE will make the calls to those areas within Orange County that are near north of COE, because they have stations that are a lot closer and can get those resources to wherever they need that much faster. Now, in the south area, even though we're not south of COE, we're still in their fire service protection area. Orange County has a lot more stations in this area. So the automatic aid would again be the same as it is in north of COE, where COE responds to Orange County calls. Orange County would continue to respond to calls in south of COE and the town of Windermere. Again, this is such a small area as far as a impact, it's not really going to have a detrimental impact on the amount of calls or the response time of whoever the closest engine is going to be, or EMS. So hopefully that made sense. And again, if it didn't, then we can go ahead and answer those questions too. But we have talked to COE and they have agreed to the annexation of this area. And a thing that we'll talk about too, when it comes to the financial impact, is currently you are paying an MSTU to Orange County Fire and Orange County Sheriff's Office. Now, the Orange County Fire is going up from, I think, 3.2 to 2.2 to about 2.8 mils, which means for every 1,000 units that your property is worth, so whatever your property is worth divided into 1,000, then you would multiply that by 2.2 to see what your current is, and now you can multiply that by 2.8 to see what your next year's tax roll is going to be. But it was about $100 for every $250,000 value of your home. That's how much it's going up for next fiscal year. And currently the town of Windermere has a 0.008 millage rate for its fire services because we have a fixed rate with a COE. Currently, I think it's at $850,000 for that service for the town of Windermere, and it goes up between $25,000 and $50,000 each and every year. If the town was going to build its own fire station and possibly EMS, you're looking into the millions of dollars to be able to provide that service. Sorry. Politics. A lot of people think if you get annexed into town of Windermere, you're losing your voice, you're losing your vote, and you're not. You're actually gaining an additional voice, an additional layer of representation. So once you're annexed into town of Windermere, then you would be able to vote in town of Windermere issues. Because currently, you know, you're outside the town, so things that pretty much really directly impact you because you're so close to the town of Windermere, you wouldn't have a vote, you wouldn't have, you know, technically representation. You'd be able to go ahead and voice your opinion, but again, I believe somebody with the ability to vote is going to have a lot more weight because they directly impact the council members and the mayor, who actually are the representatives for the entire town of Windermere. So let's say you have an issue with Windermere Road and or Park Avenue and Main Street. Again, you know, that is just a town of Windermere issue because that's our roadway. But again, as a part of the town of Windermere, you're able to go ahead and provide more input. In addition to that, you still don't lose your votes for Orange County or any of the constitutional officers of Orange County. You still have, you know, you can elect the county mayor, your District 1 commissioner. You would also be, you know, for state attorney, for public defender, the judges. You don't lose any of that political power when it comes to your development. So you still have, you know, the national, state, county, and now you actually have a voice in what happens locally to you. And you also have a lot of direct access to the town admin, to the police department, to your elected officials, because we have that smaller pool that you can, you know, we're not looking at thousands and thousands of tens of thousands of residents. We have about 3,000 residents within the town of Windermere limits. We're only 2.2 square miles, so we're very small when it comes to the county and a lot of their concerns. So you're going to have a lot more direct or access. I think everybody in the town of Windermere, if you get my card, it has my cell phone number on it. I know some of the residents of Chaine Du Lac, especially when it comes to emergency situations, they typically text me, call me, and I'm more than happy to answer the questions or see if I can get in contact with somebody that's able to assist them as fast and quickly as possible. So added benefits to annexing to the town of Windermere. Once you're annexed in, then you're able to use our recreational activities or the areas. You can get a tennis key for the Main Street courts, Windermere Recreation Center courts. You're going to be able to go ahead and get a boat pass for our two boat ramps that we have in the town of Windermere. The first one being at Fernwood Park and the second one being off of Bessie. The one on 6th Avenue is maintained by Orange County. And again, the Keens Point one is maintained by Orange County as well. You'd also be able to attend resident-only events. There's certain events in the town of Windermere that are basically resident-only, and with special invites to just the residents, whether it just be, holiday hoopla. Next year is our centennial celebration. So we're looking at just doing, resident-only community events. And if you talk to any resident in the town of Windermere, they can definitely tell you that we have a lot of events, we have a lot of community involvement, and it's a great way to meet your neighbors. And I know that you guys are already part of the community because you're at the food trucks, you're at the farmer's market, you're at Wine and Dine. So I feel like you're already part of the town of Windermere. So we're just trying to make it official. You can sit on the various town boards and committees. We have Development Review Board, which makes decisions on setbacks, variances, anything that's going to be changed in the land development code. We have Tree Board, we have Parks and Recreation, we have long range planning. When we take a look at, future plans for the town of Windermere and future plans that are going to be impacting this area, whether it's a roundabout, whether it's going to be getting water, wastewater, they take a look at that and they have a direct, pretty much contact with the town council through the recommendations, and those hold a lot of weight. We also have Historical Preservation Board. So we're very big on historical preservation when it comes to our area. Because again, when you drive through the town of Windermere and you come from Orlando, Metro West, Horizons West, once you enter the town, you see the dirt roads, you see the town hall, you see, these different areas. Kind of looks like a Mayberry, like you're going into a time portal when you come into the town of Windermere. And so we're trying to maintain that charm as much as possible. And I think we've done a great job at that, trying to mix the charm of what we have by connecting, the past to the future, because we want to make sure that we are keeping up with the times as well. Disaster recovery. I think this is one of the big things that I think a lot of the residents of Chaine Du Lac had an issue with the last hurricane that came through. And actually giving it, example of what just happened tonight. But for the hurricanes that came through, we made sure that we had contracts with existing vendors. I believe it was the last hurricane that we had, the first one hit over in Texas. So a lot of the resources went over to Texas. And so a lot of the people that had contracts in the state of Florida lost not their lost their contracts, but they lost the amount of service that they can get because everybody was moving their resources to Texas. Well, then again, comes the storm that's coming through the town of Windermere and Central Florida area. We had local contacts and local contractors. So we were able to go ahead and clean up all of the debris within the town of Windermere. Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks we had everything cleaned up. And again, because we're such a small area, it's easier for us to go ahead and, connect with those relationships we have as far as Waste Pro, Rain or Shine. We had Dobson's, we had everybody, and we had staging areas as well. We had Windermere Recreation Center as a staging area, and we also offered it to Duke linesmen if they needed to be there. Also, we had the local contacts for Duke, Spectrum, all the utility companies to make sure if there's a line that's hanging on a tree, we can actually call them up, get it on the list, get on our priority list, and make sure that, we're able to go ahead and make sure that line's dead or get it fixed before we go ahead and take a tree down or remove or clear a road. But as you know from the last storm, we had every entrance point into the town of Windermere pretty much blocked. And I believe by the nighttime, we had, I think, all of the access points basically open. And again, it's a local focus, of our energies. When you're in the county, it's countywide. So they're looking at different areas all at once to make sure that they're making sure the roadways are safe, different areas are safe. So they're looking at, a bigger picture than actually we are. So our focus is condensed when there's this countywide. And I believe it took them 5 or 6 months to actually pick up the debris that you guys had from those storms. But that's, again, some of the added benefits that you get from the town of Windermere is communicating with us directly, letting us know so we can go ahead and say, okay, there's a line down over by X address in Chaine Du Lac. We can go ahead and get down to the Duke representative so they can send a linesman out. Or we can go ahead and try to see what we can do to make sure you have access to your home, and just make sure everything's safe and everything's cleaned up in a fast manner. In the example tonight, with the tree down, I got a text message from Chief. I text our public works director. They've already been on the phone with Duke. They have a linesman out there already. So once the line is cleared and it's safe, then the tree company is going to be on standby to go ahead and remove the tree that's hanging on the line. So again, it's something that's very local, very focused, as opposed to something that's countywide. Financial impact. This is something that's changed over the last time we met. And again, we've been talking about this for over a year, I believe. So currently the town of Windermere, or with the county, you're going to be paying for, again, your educational taxes. You're still going to have your navigational or the Butler Chain of Lakes district MSTU. But taxes that you currently pay with Orange County, they're not going to pay with the town of Windermere, is you're not going to be paying for that MSTU for fire and the MSTU for sheriff. But when it comes down to it, with the amount of money that you currently pay in taxes and your assessments, compared to what you would pay with the town of Windermere, is a difference of about $625 a year. That's just the average. If you have $1.5 million home, or above, that's going to escalate a little bit higher. But again, with the amount of services and the stuff that we've talked about, in addition to what Chief will talk about, when you break it down per month, where you break it down for the percentage of improvement of the quality of service and your quality of life that you're going to be getting with the town of Windermere, I think that is money that's well invested. But again, overall, you're looking at about a $625 difference. Now I'll turn it over to Chief. And again, after Chief is done, we'll be more than happy to answer any and all questions that you may have. So Chief, go ahead.
Thanks, Robert. Hey, and welcome to everybody. I know a lot of residents in Chaine Du Lac already, so thank you for jumping on board. I think, as Robert said, we have a great example just what happened tonight of a level of service that we get an opportunity to provide. For those of you who don't know me, I've been in law enforcement service for 37 years. I'm a little uniquely qualified to talk about this because I retired from the Orange County Sheriff's Office. And at one particular time, I was a Sector 3 captain, so I ran the area that included Chaine Du Lac, and I'm very familiar with the level of service both the Sheriff's Office can provide, and there's some great services there, and also that the town of Windermere can provide. The first thing I'll say is that, when minutes count, the Sheriff's Office or some other bigger agencies are only maybe 30 minutes to an hour and a half away, and that's a big deal. You can look on the screen right here, and you can notice that our calls for service, our emergency calls, are actually within a 3-minute time period. And our non-emergency calls, in other words, when you call us if something happened, an alarm call or something like that, is within 6 minutes. So that is an extremely efficient and quick time period. And of course, when you call the police, you don't want to sit around and wait for them for hours or an hour and a half, like you have on Orange County Sheriff's Office calls for service that we see in 2023. If you haven't had a chance to come by and see our new town facilities and the police department, I encourage you to do so. We are proud to say that we're a fully accredited police department. If you don't know what that means, you can look it up on our website, but also less than 45% of police agencies around the country are fully accredited. That we've went through that assessment process, which is arduous, and we actually passed it at 100%. We did not miss not one single criteria that we didn't fulfill and that we didn't meet. So we're proud of the staff for that. You know, for me, it's about a level of service. Again, we get to know our residents. We already know a lot of the Chaine Du Lac residents. It would not be cumbersome. It would not take any additional resources or law enforcement officers to patrol your area. We'd be happy to do it. And to be quite honestly, it'd be great for our officers to have an additional area to get to know the residents. And we already consider you a part of the town anyway. So it wouldn't be an additional effort for us to patrol the Chaine Du Lac area. I think that's it for me, Robert.
Thank you, Chief. And also, you know, the town of Windermere, since we are so small, we're able to incorporate you, and what we have is the Windermere Safety Watch. What we typically do is at least monthly newsletters that go out to those residents that are on that safety watch list. Gives you crime stats of what's happening, things to look out for, and also a lot of the things that the town of Windermere Police Department is working on, different trainings that they offer, self-defense classes, and also listing out all the different programs and events that we're having in the town of Windermere. So again, it's a enhancement to the level of service and the quality of life for the residents of the town of Windermere. All right, we're at that point where we can answer any questions. So if you want to raise your icon, we'll be more than happy to take you in order. Or if you just want to jump on, we'll try to see if we can moderate this as much as possible. One thing I did want to say again, this is being recorded. We want to make sure that you're sharing this with your friends and neighbors to make sure that they're getting the information, they're answering all the questions. And, you know, we don't want to put any misinformation that's going to be out there. So I'll open it up to anybody that has any questions. I did have one person raise their hand earlier. I don't know if they're still on or not. Gabriella Spector, do you still have a question? I know your hand was raised earlier. And Trevor, I think I have the same background as you in the in my office at home. Yes, Gabrielle.
Here I am. The reason I'm actually wanting to ask the question is we are the only house in Chaine Du Lac, but it's the last house in Orange County. So how do we figure in all this? It's 12,200 Park Avenue on the street.
Oh, it's on the street. It's not within that area that we had on the map.
It's not within. No, it's not within the gated community. It's the only house that is between Chaine Du Lac and Windermere next door.
Let me pull up the map here. Sorry, flipping through so fast.
So
Yeah.
did you get that? What I was saying? Yeah. You know, we are the only house that is not within Chaine Du Lac, but it borders on Chaine Du Lac on the west side, and on the east side is the first house of Windermere. So we are kind of standing there by ourselves.
Is my cursor on your property?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. It's raining really
Well,
right here.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, yeah, you would be included in the annexation process as well. We identified the Chaine Du Lac area as the area that's within the gated area. And in order to be contiguous, this property would need to be annexed in. Because if it wasn't in, then it would be non-contiguous, meaning it's not connecting to the town of Windermere.
Correct.
okay. So if Chaine Du Lac goes, we go too.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Although we're not members of Chaine Du Lac, right? That's clear.
Correct. Nothing would again change,
Correct.
you know, because I don't believe you're part of the HOA or pay for the roadway improvements or anything like that. So
No.
nothing would change. You know, we want to make sure
Okay.
that the transition will be seamless. So what you have now is what you're going to be allowed to do in the future.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Trevor with the nice office background. Go ahead.
Okay, so I didn't see anything.
It's automatic.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, so I didn't see anything in regards to the schooling
The schooling.
district on here. It didn't go through any of that. So I was just curious as to know whether it'll change our schooling district, because right now we're zoned for Windermere Elementary,
Yeah,
Windermere High School, and Bridgewater for the neighborhood. So would that remain the same, or
that would remain the
change
same,
as
and that's under
well?
the jurisdiction of Orange County Public Schools. They come up with districts for which school, and it's based on the population within that area. So it doesn't matter if you're in the town of Windermere or if you're in unincorporated Orange County, that will not change. The only thing that would change if something was like a charter school, like Oakland Charter has. They give preferential treatment to those that live in Oakland, but they supplement people within the area to go to that school. But you know, the only jurisdiction that has control over that is Orange County Public Schools. And you know, even when it came to the naming of Windermere High School, we were kind of objecting to that. And the reason for that is, you know, it's so far away from the actual town of Windermere, but it's in the zip code of Windermere, that right when it became Windermere High School, we started getting phone calls. You know, my kid wasn't picked up. You know, my kid's having this problem with this teacher. Number one, it's not only the wrong jurisdiction, but it's way outside of our town. So the name actually kind of mixes things up. With Windermere Elementary School, you know, that kind of makes sense because it is within our limits. But again, it's under the purview of Orange County Public Schools.
It is something, however, that we advocate for, that, you know,
Yes.
having been through this as a parent, certainly, especially when your kids are coming out of elementary school and then all of a sudden they could go to one of 4 middle schools, you know, we lose a lot of community, you know, the students lose a lot of community. So we do advocate with the school board as best we can to work with us on that. It has been an uphill battle to date, but, you know, we may have more success in the future. It's definitely, and to Robert's point, you know, we did have a little bit of an objection to the Windermere High School when none of the students from the town of Windermere are able to go there. So, you know, we'll just continue to keep working for it. It would be my hope and dream that the students can stay together as they progress through their public school education.
Yes, that was where I was getting at, because you know, I have a middle schooler and then I have a high schooler, and so you know they both went to Bridgewater, and now they're getting, well, the middle schooler is getting ready to go to Windermere, and I don't want her to get, you know, halfway into it or first year into it, and then all of a sudden she's gonna have to change schools, because not only she's changing schools, she's also changing friends, she's also changing else that comes along with it. So I didn't kind of, you know, want to put that on her shoulders, you know.
Certainly, and you know, our experience has been that this is the assignment of school boundaries is not something that happens every day, and it is an incredibly slow process. So where your students are now, I would say it is quite safe to say that they will be going to the same school. And if you love that school, that's great. If you're not as thrilled, it's not as good a thing. But certainly, I would not expect any drastic
it's pretty good
changes in the near future.
Yeah,
Great question. I'll make sure I amend the presentation for the next meeting to put that on there to make sure that everybody understands that it's not a jurisdiction, but we would advocate if there's a lot of interest from a certain development. And another thing to point out too is with Windermere Elementary School, we have such a great relationship with the principal and the staff that are over there. And we actually have a councilwoman that is a representative from the town of Windermere that sits on their SAC committee. So they're able to provide input of what's going on in the town directly that may have an impact on whether their future plans or just, you know, enhancing that quality service we're talking about.
Right. And then my next question would be in regards to the boat ramps and the tennis courts. Is that something where I know, you know, as of now, or you know, my previous neighborhood, we weren't allowed to use, even though we were in Windermere, we were not in the town of Windermere. We're not allowed to use the tennis courts or the boat ramps or whatnot. Is there like an access that we get, like for example, like a key or like a pass or something like that we can use it? Or
yeah, once annexed on Windermere, one of the amenities I was talking about is, you know, you would have the opportunity, because we have people come in on a daily basis and they say, hey, listen, Well, the town of Windermere, I want a key to the tennis courts, or I want a code to the boat ramp. We check their ID, they're outside the town limits, and they are always confused about the zip code of Windermere and the actual town limits of Windermere. So if you're annexed into the town limits of Windermere, you would have access to getting a tennis key. You'd also have access to getting a code for the boat ramps. Another thing too is a lot of people do rent out town hall, so you'd have the ability to have a discount for town hall rentals and also for the pavilion rentals.
Oh, that'll be nice.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's all for my question, Louise. Thank
Thank
you
you so
very
much.
much. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Great question, Trevor.
Yeah.
Do we have anybody else that has any questions, comments? That would be, we'd be able to go ahead and answer. And I do believe the power is back up.
Yep, I think it just came back here too.
Yes, sir. The power is back on. 6th Avenue, 6th is opened back up, and there's no need to send the tree company out because the sidewalk and the road are cleared of any tree debris.
I mean, who wouldn't want to be part of this town? Good job, guys. Appreciate all your hard work.
Yes, sir. All right. I'll give another minute for any questions or comments in case anybody was thinking about something. Again, I thank you for your attendance. I know there's probably a lot of questions or rumors or hearsay that's going around within the Chaine Du Lac area, but again, we'd make sure that if annexed in, or make sure it's seamless as possible, and that everything is laid out in a developer's agreement. So, there's no gotchas or anything like that. Should have the confidence of what you're voting for if and when this comes to a vote. So with that said, again, thank you all for your time. We'll make sure that we have either one or two more of these meetings with the residents of Chaine Du Lac. We're going to have 2 meetings with the public of the town of Windermere, just to educate them on, why the town was looking at this certain portion for annexation, and some of the possible impacts to the town wide, which are very limited and very de minimis. And then we'll take it to town council for that public hearing to schedule out the referendum. But again, thank you for your time, and please feel free to share this. We'll go ahead and post it on Zoom probably within the next few days, and share with your friends and neighbors so they can see, how great the town of Windermere is and all the benefits that are coming through the town of Windermere. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you, everybody.
I got one more question before
Yes, sir.
we go. Okay, so I noticed that it says that something in regards to the building department. Did you guys have your own inspectors and own portal that people would have to pull permits from versus going on to Fast Track in Orange County and doing their own permits and calling in the inspections to Orange County?
Yeah, so currently, because we're so small, we have PCS, so we have a contracted building permitting office, and we also use Wade Trim for the planning and zoning stuff. We have a great relationship with PDCS. A lot of times we'll have contractors or homeowners that have questions, want a meeting. They contact me and we try to resolve that as soon as possible, as opposed to going to your District 1 commissioner, District 2 commissioner, District 3 commissioner to try to get a problem resolved. I try to get it resolved as fast as possible, but everything is done by Florida Building Code when it comes to a building permit. And then also when it comes to the planning and zoning, you'd have to adhere to the town of Windermere LD Land Development Code. But if there's any anomalies within that are currently approved by Orange County within your development, then we can maybe look at that and adopt that through either creating a PUD or its own separate zoning.
Yeah, Robert, just one thing to add, where you still would
Because
have
there
Orange County
are,
involved.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
sir.
I'm sorry, where you still would have Orange County involved would be things like boat docks and environmental things with Orange County Environmental Protection. We coordinate extremely closely with them because they still have their own permitting requirements on those kinds of things. But that's done in coordination with us at the town. So we at Wade Trim on the planning and zoning side, we have a very, very strong relationship with Orange County EPD and work very closely with them on those kind of permitting issues. But outside of those kinds of things, everything just comes through the town.
Okay. The reason why I asked is because there's still I want to say maybe like 3 or 4 lots that are undeveloped in here, and you know, people may or may not want to know how that will happen after, you know, they annex this neighborhood into the town of Windermere versus Orange County.
Yeah, again, we want to make this as seamless as possible. So whatever was agreed to in the plat and whatever, if there's a developer's agreement that was entered into at the time of the development of Chaine Du Lac, we want to honor that. So because you guys bought a piece of property with the understanding of here's what the setbacks are going to be, here's what you're allowed, here's what you're not allowed. So again, we will make that as seamless as possible, and whatever the entitlements are for your current development, we would go ahead and memorialize that in our developers or annexation agreement, that we wouldn't change that. Okay.
Sounds
Thank you, Trevor.
good.
All right. Y'all take care and
Thanks all.
try to stay safe in this storm, you know.
Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it. Have a
All
good
right,
evening.
take care.
Take care, everyone.